Hello and welcome back to Better Know a Poet. Today, F is for Fitzgerald. This is Edward Fitzgerald. Now, I need to clarify this is not Edmund Fitzgerald. That's a boat that's sung about by Gordon Lightfoot. And this is also not F. Scott Fitzgerald. That's an American 1920s author who wrote the book that I think everybody in high school is required to read, The Great Gatsby. He's also the writer of some great short stories and some poetry. But no, this is Edward Fitzgerald. He is a 19th century English nobleman and poet. So that's who we're going to be learning about today. Edward Fitzgerald was born on March 31st, 1809, in Bredfield, near Woodbridge, Suffolk, England, and he died June 14th, 1883, in Merton, Norfolk. He was an English writer, best known for his translation of the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, which, though it is a very free adaptation and selection from the Persian poet's verses, stands on its own as a classic of English literature. It is one of the most frequently quoted of lyric poems, and many of its phrases, such as a jug of wine, a loaf of bread, and thou, and the moving finger writes, have passed into common currency. Fitzgerald was educated at Trinity College, Cambridge, where he formed a lifelong friendship with William Makepeace Thackeray. Soon after graduating in 1830, he retired to the life of a country gentleman in Woodbridge. Though he lived chiefly in seclusion, he had many intimate friends, including Alfred Lord Tennyson and Thomas Carlyle, with whom he kept up a steady correspondence. A slow and diffident writer, Fitzgerald published a few works anonymously, then freely translated 6 dramas of Calderon in 1853, before learning Persian with the help of his Orientalist friend Edward Cowell. In 1857, Fitzgerald mashed together, as he put it, material from 2 different manuscript transcripts, one from the Bodleian Library, the other from Calcutta, to create a poem whose Epicurean pathos consoled him in the aftermath of his brief and disastrous marriage. In 1859, the Rubaiyat was published in an unpretentious, anonymous little pamphlet. The poem attracted no attention until, in 1860, it was discovered by Dante Gabriel Rossetti, and soon afterwards by Algernon Swinburne. Fitzgerald did not formally acknowledge his responsibility for the poem until 1876. Its appearance in the same year as Darwin's Origin of Species, when the sea of faith was at its ebb, lent a timely significance to its philosophy, which combines expressions of outright hedonism, take the cash and let the credit go, with uneasy ponderings on the mystery of life and death. So Edward Fitzgerald is known not as a poet in his own right, but as a translator. He was also a great poet. He did translations, but most known for his translation of the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. So there you are. I was just talking today to my students about the importance of archival research. So here you are. You go to the Bodleian Library in Oxford. You find this Persian manuscript, and you say, "I'm going to translate it." You translate it and become one of the most well-known poets of the age. So Fitzgerald is not known for his own poetry, but his translation his and it's not a single poem. The Rubaiyat is a collection of poetry, all from the same person, and Fitzgerald translated it and placed it together in wonderful quatrains. It's 4-line stanzas, and a Rubaiyat means that every third line is off rhyme. So it's A B B C D C or B B C B C C D C all throughout. So the first 2 lines are repeating, and then the last 2 lines alternate. And altogether, the poem has a lot of stanzas. So this is the version of the poem from Harold Bloom's The Best Poetry in the English Language. And I don't know if you can read that, but that's the end of it. That's stanza 101. So it has 101 stanzas. Part of me wants to read it all to you today, but I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'm going to find this very helpful translation from the Oxford Book of English Verse, another wonderful collection. And he has 2 selections here, which are about 10 stanzas each. So I'm going to read this shortened version today. So again, this is Edward Fitzgerald's translation of the Rubai or the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. Awake, for morning in the bowl of night has flung the stone that puts the stars to flight. And lo, the hunter of the east has caught the Sultan's turret in a noose of light. Dreaming when dawn's left hand was in the sky, I heard a voice within the tavern cry, "Awake, my little ones, and fill the cup, before life's liquor in its cup be dry." And as the cock crew, those who stood before the tavern shouted, "Open then the door! You know how little while we have to stay, and once departed, may return no more." Now the new year reviving old desires, the thoughtful soul to solitude retires, where the white hand of Moses on the bough puts out, and Jesus from the ground suspires. Iram indeed is gone with all its rose, and Jamshid's seven-ringed cup where no man knows. But still the vine her ancient ruby yields, and still a garden by the water blows. And David's lips are locked, but in divine, high-piping Pelevi with "Wine, wine, wine." Red wine, the nightingale cries to the rose, that yellow cheek of hers to incarnadine. Come fill the cup, and in the fire of spring the winter garment of repentance fling. The bird of time has but a little way to fly, and lo, the bird is on the wing. And look, 1,000 blossoms of the day woke, and 1,000 scattered into clay. And this first summer month that brings the rose shall take Jamshid and Kaikobad away. But come with old Khayyam and leave the lot of Kaikobad and Kakaruso forgot. Let Rustum lay about him as he will, or Hatem Tai cry supper, heed them not. With me along some strip of herbage strown, that just divides the desert from the sown, where name of slave and sultan scarce is known, and pity Sultan Mahmud on his throne. Here with a loaf of bread beneath the bough, a flask of wine, a book of verse, and thou beside me singing in the wilderness, and wilderness is paradise enow. But leave the wise to wrangle, and with me the quarrel of the universe let be, and in some corner of the hubbub couched, make game of that which makes as much of thee. For in and out, above, about, below, 'tis nothing but a magic shadow show, played in a box whose candle in the sun, round which the phantom figures come and go. And if the wine you drink, the lip you press, end in the nothing all things end in yes, then fancy while thou art but what thou shalt be, nothing, thou shalt not be less. While the rose blows along the river bank, with old Khayyam the ruby vintage drink, and when the angel with his darker draught draws up to thee, take that, and do not shrink. 'Tis all a checker board of nights and days, where destiny with men for pieces plays, and hither and thither moves, but mates and slays, and one by one back in the closet lays. The ball no question makes of eyes or nose, but right or left as strikes the player goes. And he that tossed thee down into the field, he knows about it all. He knows. He knows. The moving finger writes, and having writ, moves on, nor all thy piety nor wit shall lure it back to cancel half a line, nor all thy tears wash out a word of it. And that inverted bowl we call the sky, whereunder crawling cooped we live and die, lift not thy hands to it for help, for it rolls impotently on as thou or I. Okay, wonderful poem. You can find a link to the poem in the description box below this video. So again, please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe to this playlist, and I will see you tomorrow.